ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WETOODEEP. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seat. This is slapping me, yes, slapping me.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Slapping Meat Community Show. It is Fan Question Friday. Excuse me. So, I've gathered up all the questions from the Discord that haven't been answered yet. That's going to be the first episode for those, who are new. Maybe those who just aren't sure what we're doing. This is a new little thing. I used to do a thing every single week, every single episode called Questions from the Discord. I decided that because a lot of times I would get a lot of questions at the fair end of an episode. You're an hour and 20 some minutes in, and just pull back the curtain a little bit. If you've never podcasted, when you do one of these things, right, you start out pretty hot, right? You bring the energy, and you get there's about an hour and you plateau, right? I try to keep the same amount of energy towards every single segment. I try to, and I feel like I do a pretty good job at that. But there's a time where I look at the time on the recording, and there's a little voice in my head once we get to about an hour, I look at where we're at and I'm like, oh, we got to speed this up, right? Most people, I don't know if there's statistics to show this or not, but most people tend to want a podcast that's like at most 90 minutes because it's a commute thing, it's a gym thing, or something along those lines. Most people, I don't imagine, who listen to something like Jim Cornette, which goes for 4 hours, or who listens to something like Joe Rogan, I don't think most people have the attention span to listen to a whole 4 hour Joe Rogan podcast in one setting. I know for me, unless it's a day off. So if I'm ever going to watch something on Joe Rogan, and guys like him, like Theo Vaughn or Sean Ryan, it's got to be a person I'm interested in, and it's more than likely being watched on a day off where I have 4 hours straight to listen to it. Right? But most of the time when you do these things, especially when it's just me and it's just my energy, and I understand I want this to be about 90 minutes, I plateau at around an hour and I start to rush through topics. And having to put questions from the Discord at the end, there are times when there are some very good questions that maybe don't get the answer they deserve. They get answered and I can check them off mentally, but they maybe don't get the answer they deserve. And so what I decided to do was, well, we'll save them. We'll do one episode a month. And then I decided, well, I'm still doing that at the end of an episode. And it's the same thing still happening, right? So then I said, well, how about we do this? Normal news episode on Tuesdays. And then we'll do the questions and we'll give them its own episode every single Friday. So with that concept, I need y'all to bring the questions. If you're in the Discord, if you're not in the Discord, now's a perfect time to join the Discord. You are the producer of every Friday episode. Nothing's planned. In fact, 90% of these questions I haven't even thought of an answer of. They are live on the spot questions. Right? Or like live on the spot, straight from the dome, freestyling these answers. Is about 90% of these, right? There's one that Kara sent in yesterday that I sort of did some looking into. Like, I I need a reason for why I believe what I believe, right? On this question, right? And so there's that one. So that's what Fan Question Friday will become, right? And so that's what we will do. However, there are a few pieces of news that I think need to be discussed and can't wait till Tuesday. The big one is, I just saw yesterday that TKO is not a fan of the dark mystery characters, which is more than likely why the Wyatt Six, Zelina Vega, and Aleister Black got released. Now, the Wyatt Six needed to go. There was nothing you could do with them. I hate to see Joe Gacy go, though, because I thought Joe Gacy could have easily transitioned back into NXT, where I thought there's creative where Joe Gacy could go back to old Joe Gacy, show up on NXT and challenge Tony D for the title. I think that could have been something you could have done with his whole promo being, you know, I got locked up in a fun house or something, right? You know, sort of. I don't know. I think there's if they wanted to get creative, they could have gotten creative. But I want to just put on record that WETOODEEP was the first person to say, right, that I know of, that these dark characters don't work in a corporate setting. That not only will corporate not like them, but most of the non-sicko fans aren't going to relate to the sort of dark, creepy characters. And this is I feel somewhat justified, because I took a lot of crap for saying that. Every time Bray Wyatt would show up, or rest in peace to Bray Wyatt. Like, I'm not trying to bring back old beef, but I kind of am. When Bray Wyatt first came back with this whole Uncle Howdy gimmick, you know, he came back and he came through the door, and I forgot what PLE that was. And that moment was pretty good, right? It got me in the feels, right? It was good. Bray Wyatt's back. And then nothing came of it except of creepy promos that never escalated to anything. And then he started fighting Uncle Howdy, right? And then we got the crazy Rumble blacklight match, Mountain Dew sponsored, with LA Knight. And that was sort of like the last thing we had with Bray Wyatt before he tragically passed away. Like, I feel like even talking about it, I'm going to get some crap about it. I know it. But we have to be realistic with this. I said when he walked through that door, this will not work in the corporate setting that WWE is in. Corporate's not going to like it. It's not going to sell as much merch as they think it's going to. And it's not going to be presented in a way, right? And I said that. And then Bray tragically passed. Sometime later, Uncle Howdy shows back up as, Bo Dallas shows up as Uncle Howdy with the rest of the family. And again, I continue to say this isn't going to work. We have to stop with these type of characters. This is a different generation, right? We can't try to do what we did with The Undertaker in the 80s and 90s, because now, can I even say then? I even said then, remember what I said? I said, even then, I'm not a fan of Dead Man Taker. That there's a reason when Undertaker comes back now, he comes out to American Badass. Because that's the best version of Taker. That's the version of Taker I remember growing up watching. Right? Because it's relatable. It's human. right? It's not mystical guy comes out of nowhere, dead for, right? I remember American Badass Taker. That's my favorite version. I think it's the best version of Taker. I know people may disagree, and that's fine. Everyone has the right to an opinion. But these dark and creepy gimmicks, they just don't work. Like even Kane, right? I love Kane. I think Kane is one of my favorite characters growing up as a kid. But I think removing the mask and removing the idea that he's a demon and just sort of having him, like, this one's harder for me because I liked the devil's favorite demon, Kane. I liked that idea with him in the red mask and everything. I think that worked, in my opinion, better than. But part of me wonders, like, if they would have done this corporate Kane gimmick in the Attitude Era, where it's just a normal dude who is part of the suits, who you say the wrong thing and the demon comes out, like he turns literally into, he's half demon, like from hell, but he's showing himself. Isn't that the idea of the show Lucifer? I've never watched the show Lucifer, but I feel like that's the plot of the show Lucifer. Where like it's the demon from hell who's sort of parading or masking himself as a human, and you say the wrong thing or you set him off and the demon comes out, right? I think that would have worked really good creatively for Kane, and I think that's what corporate Kane was kind of supposed to be, right? He's just a normal dude, but you got to be careful what you say around him because he might get set off. I don't know. I don't know if necessarily, but also Kane being demonic and Undertaker being a resurrected zombie gravekeeper. Two very different, and I don't mean zombie, I mean wizard, but practically a zombie. Like he's a zombie wizard cemetery burial director is essentially what he is. He's the Undertaker, right? And I don't know if there's a reason American Badass resembles more with people, I believe, than Ministry of Darkness Taker. In my opinion, I could be wrong, but I feel a little bit validated in what I was saying about the Wyatt Six not working when it comes out that, hey, they get released and then it gets come out they weren't interested in dark gimmicks. It also then explains why Karrion Kross didn't get pushed, why Zelina and Alistair really didn't go anywhere, right? It makes a lot of sense. Now this was presented as a question, but I want to talk about it as a news thing. Kara had asked, like, what is everyone's thoughts on this whole Wheezy thing? Now, for those who are more casual and aren't involved in, like, wrestling drama, don't blame you. The wrestling creative world drama, I do not blame you. So here's how I want to respond, because I told her I would respond on this episode. And here's how I want to respond. I don't want to respond talking about the drama itself, because I don't care about the drama itself. There's always going to be drama on the internet. And by drama, I mean, who is Wheezy? What, people talking about her. Like, I don't care about the characters involved. I just want to talk about the content of the argument that was made. So it's short rundown from what I understand, because I didn't go back and watch the video. I'm just going to give you a short rundown. Apparently a guy asked Wheezy, hey, I'm trying to get into content creation. What are some tips you would give to me? Essentially was the question he asked. And Wheezy's answer was don't. Essentially, don't get into this. It's too saturated. And so then there was this argument. Who's right? Or was Wheezy right in how she handled this? Now, I don't want to get into right or wrongs on this. Because here's the problem. Here's the problem with the IWC and with the internet in general. Someone asks a question of a content creator, and like, not everyone's gonna coddle your feelings. Like, because from a realistic standpoint, she's not necessarily wrong in what she said. She may not have said it the right way, but she's not necessarily wrong. We'll break it down. We'll break down my thoughts, but I want to walk you through my thought process. Right? She's not necessarily wrong. And the internet's got to stop trying to coddle people from realistic expectations. Wheezy, I think, was just setting the expectation like, this isn't easy. So if you're not willing to put in the hard work, don't get into this. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Because if someone were to ask me that question, and I'm nowhere on the level of Wheezy. Now, here's the thing. This is why I don't want to make it about Wheezy. I like Wheezy. I respect Wheezy. She's one of my favorite creators. I want to put a huge asterisk on this question, on this answer. Now, I'm not a huge creator, but I do consider myself part of the internet wrestling community creator universe, right? I have a podcast. I talk about wrestling, right? I don't have a big following, right? I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a quote-unquote influencer, but I would consider myself part of that space. And so I respect everyone in that space, even if they don't want me there, right? Wrestle Talk, I don't really know. I'm not part of TikTok anymore, so I wouldn't say I'm part of Wrestle Talk, but like the wrestling creator space. They fought really hard to get me out. Try to, shadow ban me and report me to TikTok and all of this thing. They don't want me here. Now, they don't want me here because in the same realm, the bigger, because I also have another feeling about what I think Wheezy's doing. I think this is a very nuanced situation. This isn't a she's right or she's wrong. I think there's a lot of nuance to this situation. Because I think there's something she may be doing. While also, I think there's multiple things she could be doing. And one of them is financial for her. We'll get into this. Then there's the bigger question. Is wrestling content creation, is it oversaturated? So there's a lot to talk about in this discussion. That's why I wanted to talk about it first. I don't want to make this about Wheezy, though. I like Wheezy. I respect Wheezy. She's one of the few big creators when I was in Wrestle Talk. And I wasn't big, but I had over 1,000 followers on TikTok. And people were somewhat watching my videos. The problem is I just wasn't consistent enough posting things. Because I want to, this is going to get into my answer if I start going down this rabbit hole. So we'll hold that thought for a minute. But Wheezy was one of the ones when I was getting lambasted by what I would call the popular crowd over an opinion that I had. That sort of canceled me, right? Wheezy was one of the ones that sort of stayed out of it. And I respect that. I know she would disagree with my take, but she didn't feel the need to post a video about it. a lot of big people who are big in this space right now did feel like it was worth making a video about it. A lot of them who were big and then died off, because that's the reality with this system. I want to walk people through this question, because my answer would not have been Wheezy's answer. My answer would have been literal. It would have set you up for reality. Hey, this is hard work. Put in the hard work. Be willing to do the hard work. But my answer would have been, even with the hard work, you may not make it. And here's why. Because my answer would have then said, because we are oversaturated, you have to find that thing that sets you apart from everybody else. That would have been my answer. I don't necessarily think Wheezy is wrong saying wrestling content creating world is oversaturated. It's right. Some people will disagree with me. It is oversaturated in the market. Here's why. Best estimates in America, we have probably about, just based on ratings and things, probably at best 3 million wrestling fans in the United States. Assuming, now I don't know the exact number of people who do content creation in the wrestling sphere. Assume that there's 1,000 of them. So you got 3 million fans with 1,000 content creators. If they all got equal viewership, it would be 3,000 viewers per content creator. Now, here's the thing we understand. We understand that that's not how the internet works. We understand that there is a group of people. One, the 3 million fans watch multiple content creators. But we also know the reality that if there's 1,000 content creators, the top 20, 30, 40 of them, that's 2, 3, 4%, are getting more than likely 90% of the views. We'll pull back the curtain on this. I've been doing this for July 1st will make 4 years. All right? So we're almost at the 4-year mark that I've been doing this. Maybe 5. Because July 22, July 23, July 24. It's like 4 or 5 years. I know we're in season 5. That's against the point, though. But 22, 23, 24, 25. Maybe it's 5 years. I don't know. But I've been doing this for a pretty good chunk of time. Average viewership on an episode, and I'm only using Spotify and Apple for these numbers. That's the only thing I care about. Realistically, I do not care about YouTube. I post on YouTube so people can watch on YouTube if they want, but there's nothing to watch. You're just listening, so you might as well just go to Apple or Spotify anyway. I'm a podcast. I don't want to be a show, like a syndicated show on a network somewhere. I mean, if someone offered me money to do this, then I would take it. But I don't want to be on camera right now. I just realistically, this is a podcast. You are listening on podcast networks. With that being said, the average viewership per episode for my show right now averages somewhere between 5 to 13 within the first week of the episode being posted. Right? I'm not getting views, which is so that is what I would share as the realism. If you're not big in this space, it's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's going to probably take somewhat of a marketing budget. It's almost like if I were to, like my dream, if I ever hit the lottery, outside of making podcasts like my day job, podcasting my day job, would be to set up passive income through starting my own storage company, self-storage, right? But here's the reality about getting into that space. I've been in that industry for 5 years. Here's the reality. In every big city in America, you have a storage facility, maybe 2 on every corner, on most streets. And like, I live in in the top 5 growing cities in America, Charlotte, North Carolina, and we have a storage facility practically on every corner. Storage facilities in the South are becoming what churches were when the country was first founded, where they put a church on every corner. Now we got a storage facility on every corner because there's a high need for it. But what that means is, and a lot of these are the top 4 names in storage: CubeSmart, Extra Space, Public Storage. I would say NSA, but NSA just got bought out by Public Storage. So now it's 3 names. Go Store It, Prime Storage owns, I think that's the LLC name, and they run multiple different companies. And that's what you'll find out, is that the biggest company names are like, so if you happen to find a building that still has a Life Storage logo on it, it's owned by Extra Space, and they just haven't changed the logos yet. That's the point that I'm trying to say, is like, so to be a mom and pop in the storage industry, it's going to require somewhat of a marketing budget. You have to market better and more than the big dogs, because the big dogs run the atmosphere. They're the names that have brand trust. They're the known names. They're the ones that are paying to be on the top of every Google search. And so you got to have a marketing budget. Now, a lot of mom and pops somewhat survive by being cheaper in price. Like, hey, these big names, they do this. We'll be the cheapest price. And that's how a lot of them get business. But if you want to make actual money running a storage facility, you got to charge market rate, and you got to have a marketing budget. And that's what I would say with podcasting as well. If you're going to get into this space, you got to have consistency and posting. You gotta recognize that it is a highly saturated market, but it's not like it's the next level of nuance of this is it's a very niche market, and Wavy D brought this up as well, and so I'm glad he said this, because that's my answer practically. Is I don't necessarily think it's oversaturated. I think what we have is we have a market that's very niche, and no one's doing anything unique. There's a reason why. Like, I could easily do the formula and post shorts on, here's my top 5. There's a reason I'm not doing the segment Deep 5 anymore. It's not unique. How many different podcasts and content creators and reactors open up a YouTube channel and they start doing like top 10 greatest wrestlers, or here's my Mount Rushmore, let's go through why the Attitude Era was so great, and let's review the Ruthless Aggression Era, and here's my top 10 list of various different topics, or let me react to different matches, or live streaming PLEs and reacting. And that formula is the same, and you have 9,000 people. I'm exaggerating. I don't know the exact number, but you have a lot of people following this same formula, and it only works for, like I said, the top 5% of reactors. But you also recognize, like no diss to some of these people, but guys like In the Clutch. I love the guys that In the Clutch. Ross and Dub. I love them. I've been fans of In the Clutch since they first started reacting, and they started reacting to music. And at the time they were getting into music, everyone started a YouTube channel to do YouTube reactions or to do music reactions. Why? Because it was a new trendy thing that people could do that to get you viewership. Right? I even tried it. Right? The problem is with me is I didn't have an audience, so I didn't know what to like react to. And the things that were popular to react to, I just wasn't really interested. I wasn't interested in reacting to the new, Juice WRLD and all the new rappers and stuff like that, right? Because until you build an audience in that world, you got to react to what's just popular and what people will look at. And essentially in content creation now, essentially the formula is, what are the big dogs doing, and copy them. And maybe you'll get you could taste the tail end of their success, and some of their fans may leak over to you, right? Now I'm a fan of the rapper Tom McDonald. That's what I would react to a lot. Whenever Tom would drop that Friday, if you got a video out, so he would release it noon Eastern time, right? If you were available on Friday at noon and could go to the video and react to it first thing and get your videos out, even if you weren't a big creator, you probably had a larger chance of getting some sort of reaction. I think the sickest thing that ever happened to me when I did video reactions, music reactions, was a Chris Webby song. I forgot which Raw Thoughts it was. And I did the reaction on it, and Chris Webby actually watched it and commented on it. And that was cool. That was when I was on my little Chris Webby sort of thing. I don't really listen to him much anymore. But in that space, I'm spending a lot of time on this question, but I think it requires a lot of time because it's very nuanced. And so there's a reason I don't think I'll ever go big. I don't want my motto of what I want to do isn't what's popular. I don't want to do the reactions. There's a reason I don't react to Monday Night Raw in the way that, I could do what Dave Meltzer does and write down every move that happens and then discuss it on the show, and the sickos would love me. I don't want to do that. That's boring. That's not creative. It's not worth my time. And I just don't give a crap that much about the individual matches and moves to go through each individual segment like that. I just want to tell you my opinion. I'm an opinion creator. Here's what happened. Now here's my opinion on what happens. And you're in a space where there's no creativity. People are just posting the same bland content. That's why I am sort of out, but now this comes into the final point of nuance as to why I think Wheezy was being correct in the assessment that it's a little oversaturated. Mix that with the fact that the oversaturation of the market has then created a place where if you're not doing the formula, right? If you're not doing the reactions or the top 10 list or trying to guess the songs like Stash Club does. The Stash Club got a little creative in doing that, but now everyone else is doing it, right? So you throw all that on top of, I think there's a little gatekeeping in the top percentage of people who get paid in wrestling content creation. I think that there's a bit of, we can't allow someone, I'm just going to be completely honest. When COVID happened and TikTok exploded and Wrestle Talk exploded in 2021, 2022, and all these people with a phone got on TikTok and started making content, That was a beautiful time. That is what I would call the free market economy of Wrestle Talk. Because everyone and their mother could get into this. This is why, like, when at the time it was called Anchor. Anchor is now owned by Spotify Podcasts. It's what Spotify Podcasts is what Anchor was. But at the time when Anchor first created, it was an app. And essentially, what the idea behind it is, if you had a phone, you could podcast. And you downloaded the app, you created your podcast. It did all of the RSS distribution, meaning it put it on Spotify, it put it on Apple for you. And then all you had to do was essentially record the episodes, and you had a podcast. And at the time when that was created, the podcast space was just starting to explode. And the idea, the sort of free market economic idea is everyone can get into this, everyone can do it, and some will succeed and some won't. And that was probably mid-2010, like 2015-ish was when that started happening. Because I remember, like, 2017, me, James, Junkyard James, and Cody, we had a podcast together about wrestling and sports and stuff. I've been in this game for a minute, yo. Trying to get big on podcasting. And I'm going to be honest with you, this Wrestle Talk thing, I think a lot of the creators who blew up got lucky. I'm just going to be honest with you. I think a lot of them got lucky. I'm not saying that they didn't work hard. But I do think there's a hinge of luck that a lot of these people have. And I'm not going to name names. A lot of the women who blew up because they were attractive. And I'm not putting every woman who blew up in that situation, but a lot of them blew up in the Wrestle Talk world because they were attractive, and the male fan base flocked to them. There are pretty girls who watch wrestling, and I have to watch what they say about it. Right? I'll say this one because I don't care what Marissa and Johnny. Kara probably just hissed at the phone. Like, why are we bringing them up? I'm going to be completely honest. When I first followed Marissa on TikTok, it was because she showed up on my For You page in a sports video. It wasn't even about wrestling. In a sports video. I thought she was attractive, so I clicked follow. Didn't even hear the video that she said. I literally saw her, thought she was attractive, clicked follow. And then I watched the video, don't remember what the video was. Then I saw her again on my followed page, and she was talking about wrestling, right? She blew up because she was attractive. Not because of her opinions. Her opinions are, if I'm honest, her opinion, if this space, if the podcast space, if the content creation space was about who had the best opinions, the people who blew up probably wouldn't have blown up. Right? It was clearly a popularity contest. And if you were a female, you had a better chance of blowing up. I'm not saying that these people don't work hard. But I definitely think that a lot of the people at the top of this business got a little bit lucky in how they blew up. I mentioned, like, In the Clutch, right? In the Clutch had a following from their music reactions, and they did pretty damn good doing music reactions. Here's the problem. Probably about 10, like, everyone started doing music reactions, and so it got it got very saturated there. Everyone was doing the same songs, right? And it got very saturated. And a lot of people so I feel in the Clutch moved over. They liked wrestling, so they figured, let's get into this space. Chiseled Adonis, I love that dude. He's hilarious. But I followed Chiseled Adonis for his football stuff. Didn't even know he followed wrestling. But he does every PLE now. He shows up on WWE program, and that's where I think the gatekeeping also comes in. A lot of these top creators, I think there's a little bit of gatekeeping that goes into the back of their mind by saying if we let a new creator in and he's better than me, I either lose my paycheck or I get paid. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. WWE pays some of the top creators for their reactions. For whatever reason, they thought that it was necessary to pay reactors for reactions. So all of these I'm not going to be the guy that overreacts to things. I saw a video from CM Punk's return at War Games a few years ago. It just popped back up on my feed the other day on Facebook. I don't know how to say her name, or else I would. I'm not afraid to drop names. But she's one of the ones who I 100% believe blew up because she was attractive. Her name starts with an M. I don't know how to pronounce it. That's just my opinion. That she blew up not because of her content or the substance of her content, but she's attractive. And being a wrestling fan, there's this stigma like no girls watch pro wrestling. And so when you find a girl, much less an attractive woman, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, by the way. I'm not saying, oh, she's privileged. No. I'm saying this is the reason why, because a lot of dudes, especially the sickos, when they want, I believe a lot of the sickos, when they see woman wrestling fan, attractive woman wrestling fan, I'm going to follow not because of her content, or the substance of her content, but because she's an attractive wrestling fan. And that's just what I believe. But you could just tell she overreacted to this thing. But you could tell with a lot of these reactions, right? And you could tell which ones are sort of paid off a little bit. And so that's my take on that. I spent 30 minutes on that one question. We might be here all day. All right, let's get to some of these B-Master asks. Rank these finishing moves or these wrestling moves from the most deadly to the most mild. I'm assuming he means by if this were to happen to you in real life, the most deadly to the most mild. So we got the Poke of Doom, the Cobra, the People's Elbow, and the 5 Knuckle Shuffle. Well, the Poke of Doom is the most mild, so we'll put that at, let's say 1 is mild and 4 is the most deadly. So Poke of Doom is 1, the most mild. The People's Elbow, if you were to get hit with that in real life and get an elbow to the forehead, because that's what it was supposed to be, right? Or an elbow to the upper neck face area. I mean, that could be pretty deadly. The 5 Knuckle Shuffle is kind of the same thing. Right, it's a punch to the forehead. I think those will be 2 and 3. I'm gonna do Poke of Doom 1, People's Elbow 2, 5 Knuckle Shuffle 3. And then we get the Cobra. And I understand when Santino, that's what I'm assuming you mean by the Cobra, is Santino puts on the sock puppet and it's a Cobra that's supposed to bite you. But if we're being realistic, first off, that move is essentially it's like a quick 1-inch punch to the throat. That's very dangerous, just the move itself. But I'm also taking this super meta. If someone brought a Cobra to a fight and pulled it out and had it bite me, you're dying. That's the way, like, initially when I just saw that, that's what first came to my head. If someone brought a cobra to a fight and it bit me in the neck, I'm dying. Without even recognizing that the move itself is actually pretty deadly. Right? If someone 1-inch throat punched you at full force, that's a pretty deadly move. So we'll do Polka Doom at 1, People's Elbow 2, 5 Knuckle Shuffle 3, and the Cobra at the most deadly at 4. Now we got some Would You Rathers from B-Master. Would you rather take a frog splash from Montez Ford or take a last ride from The Undertaker? I'll say this. My answer is going to be last ride. Here's why. Undertaker is very safe when he does this move. And when it happens, I don't know, though. Here's why. Anytime you take a splash, like, you can't protect yourself in a way, like, you can't fully, like, go full guard to protect your ribs, because then it would just ruin the illusion of the move. So you have to at least take some contact to the chest. And I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of that. Montez gets some height on that thing. Montez has a pretty good frog splash. I think with the last ride, like, Taker's going to slam you, but it's very, I think, more controlled of a move. Like, I could sort of prepare for it. I can guard for it. None of them are going to feel good. You're getting slammed or splashed on a very thick piece of wood, right? Next one, would you rather take a choke slam from Kane or a spear from Roman? Again, same sort of situation. You can't guard with the spear. You just got to take it. And other than Braun Breaker, but here's the thing with Breaker's spear. Is they don't even, like, Breaker is so sloppy with his, right? So I want to just point out, like, WrestleMania, right? So he comes out, fantastic spear against the barricade to Seth. Braun walks up the ramp, right? Seth loses the match, and he's standing in front of the ring where the ramp ends, right? On that ringside area. And Braun full sprints down the ramp, and he goes to tackle him or spear him, and he doesn't even hit. It's just like the elbow, or excuse me, it was almost like a shoulder tackle, or he barely grazed him with his arm, because the whole thing they're booking Braun as is he can run 23 miles an hour. But the move, when he does the spear, a lot of times it's very sloppy. Now, when he hits. I would definitely not want to take it. Same thing with Roman, though. I think Roman's spear is the most devastating looking, in my opinion. But again, you can't guard for that. Like, you got to take that full force. Whereas with the chokeslam from Kane, he controls a lot about how hard he slams you. Right? And you're more guarded. It's easier. I'll say this. It's a lot safer to take a bump on your back than it is to take something straight to the chest or the ribs. So, and then the last one is the Batista Bomb or the Rock Bottom. I'm going to go Batista Bomb. Here's why. The way Batista does it, where he does the sit-down power bomb, and 90% of the time, if it's done correctly, your shoulders end up on his ankles. If he does it correctly, you're not actually fully hitting the mat. If I watch the move correctly, and if it's done correctly. A lot of these sit-down power bombs, the reason a lot of people started moving to the sit-down power bomb is that the person getting slammed, right, taking the move, isn't actually fully hitting the mat. The way it's done a lot of times is their shoulders are like caught by your feet, right? It still hurts. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't hurt. But I think that's the safer of the two moves, so I'm going to take the Batista. I'll be honest. This is why, like, I don't want to be a wrestler if I ever get in the industry. it would solely be like a commentator or, something like that. I don't want to be a wrestler. Here's why. I'd be the most boring wrestler ever. I'm personally not doing high spots. Like, I'm not climbing ladders. I'm not climbing turnbuckles. My feet will stay on the mat. I'll be the most boring 80s wrestler you've ever seen in your life. Right? Because I think what happens when you start doing high spots is you lose a lot of the... It's part of the reason where, like, when Gunther comes in and says, I'm the best at this, and the mat is sacred, but then he goes and he does dives off the top rope. I feel like I lose a little, as good as Gunther is, I lose a little bit of the gimmick, because the whole idea is supposed to be I can wrestle you the best. Like, I would be one of those, like, technical, I don't know if I would say technical, but think of, like, Hulk Hogan, right? Now, Hogan sometimes did the atomic leg drop from the top rope. I still would, like, but I'd be the most boring wrestler ever. Y'all would hate me if I was a wrestler, because I'm not doing hardcore matches. I'm not blading. I'm not taking tack spots. You can forget all of that. Right? All the things that make wrestling fans excited, I won't do. Here's what you want me to do. I'm going to get in. I'm going to have a grand entrance. I'm going to be a grand character. I'm going to have a lot of charisma, and I may not be the greatest in-ring wrestler. Put on like 5-minute matches. I think that would be my character. I don't know. Let's move on. B-Master says, I have to say that Liv Morgan has grown on me, and I see why her fans are so loyal. With that being said, do you feel like there's something that doesn't... Do you think that there's someone who doesn't deserve the attention that they get, or is there someone you think deserves the spotlight put on them? So I want to address this in two parts. The first part is the question, but also the statement he made at the beginning. Liv Morgan growing on him. Liv Morgan has somewhat grown on me. Now I'm sort of off of Liv Morgan again. She was cool when she was the sort of crazy girlfriend, more gothic type character, right? She was the hot blonde goth girl, right? That's everyone's, like, fantasy, right? Maybe just mine. I don't know. Maybe I just told on myself, right? I was down with that. They're trying to position her as a pop star like Britney Spears or something like that. And I'm not a big fan of this. Just, I'm kind of off of her again. I go through moods. Y'all know this. Like, I was high on Rhea, then I wasn't high on Rhea, and now I'm high on Rhea again. I go through moods with this, and I think with Liv Morgan, so I had a famous statement I have been saying about Liv Morgan for a while, which is you could find 8 of them at the nearest Hooters. And then they moved her into sort of the more goth character, the Judgment Day style, like dark character. And I was into it because it made her feel a little bit unique. She didn't feel like generic white blonde girl that you could find at Hooters. Now she's a pop star again, and now that's what she is. She's the generic hot girl that works at Hooters. And I'm just, it's a little boring to me. I'm just being honest with you. I'm off of Liv Morgan now. But with that being said, this answers the question: is there someone who I believe? So there's actually 2 questions in this question. Is there someone who has the spotlight on them that shouldn't, and is there someone who doesn't have the spotlight on them that should? And I think there's an answer for both. So who has the spotlight on them that shouldn't? I'm going to say, I don't know if I would. Actually, I don't know if I have an answer for this one. I'm sitting here trying to think of, is there anyone that I feel is like unappropriately like beloved? And I can't really think of anyone. Whereas the other one, someone who doesn't have the spotlight on them that should, I'm going to just be a little biased and say Lyra Valkyria. I don't know what it is about Lyra Valkyria people don't like. I just don't understand it. genuinely do not understand why Lyra Valkyria isn't more beloved in the IWC. She's everything you want. She's a fantastic wrestler. She's somewhat semi-attractive, right? Like, you have to, these people who act like she's not attractive kill me. Like, she's very attractive. And she's everything the IWC wants. Why is there no love towards Lyra? I mean, a lot of it has to do with the booking of her, but yeah, Lyra Valkyria needs that spotlight. She's a main eventer, in my opinion. I genuinely believe that. And I guess if I had to answer for someone who has a spotlight on that shouldn't, my answer now would be Liv Morgan. I don't understand. Like, I get why fans love her. She's gorgeous. But she's now the generic white girl pop star again who works at Hooters trying to make it famous in LA. Right? You ever know, like, there's this, for every attractive be careful what I say before I end up like Diddy. For every attractive 18-year-old who graduates high school and moves to LA to pursue acting, a lot of them understand that they got to work a second job, or they got to work a full-time job to get famous, right? You just don't get famous in LA, right? You got to work. And so you got to get gigs, you got to take commercials, you got to, right? And so a lot of them work in, the reason I say Hooters is a lot of them work in these restaurants like that. They work as waitresses. And for every one that goes out there, there's and actually hits it in LA, in Hollywood, there's probably 100 others that are still working as waitresses. Not that that's a bad thing. Not saying that's a bad thing. The thing that I'm saying is you could find these attractive women everywhere working as waitresses at these restaurants. And so when you make Liv Morgan that, it's not unique. It doesn't feel famous. It doesn't feel unique. It doesn't feel like it deserves a spotlight because there's 1,000 of them that are the same. Yeah. Next question. He sent in a photo of 12 people from the industry. Which number was the least impactful to wrestling? So, y'all can't see the photo, so I will list the 12. 1 is Vince McMahon, 2 is Dusty Rhodes, 3 is Ric Flair, 4 is Hogan, 5 is Kane, 6 is Taker, 7 is Ultimate Warrior, 8 is Randy Savage, 9 is Cena, 10 is Orton, 11 is Brett, 12 is Triple H. Who was the least impactful to pro wrestling? So I want to just go through those and individually start eliminating until we have the least impactful, right? So 1, Vince McMahon might be the most impactful on this entire list. Vince McMahon is immediately eliminated from being the answer. Dusty Rhodes, we got to eliminate him. What he did in his actual career was pretty influential in the 80s. But also what he did in NXT and getting that up and running, he was very influential into wrestling. Ric Flair, eliminate him. He was influential. Hulk Hogan might be the second most influential person on the wrestling industry to ever be in the industry, right? What McMahon created, Hogan pushed towards the mainstream and got popular, right? Without McMahon, without this top row, without McMahon specifically and Hogan also specifically, WrestleMania doesn't become a global icon show, right? So let me go to the second row of people. We got Kane. He was somewhat impactful. We're going to leave him here. We'll come back to him. Taker, I think you got to eliminate for several reasons. 1, just his character. A lot of people loved him. He pushed the industry. But also now with what he's doing in AAA booking-wise, he's definitely being impactful to the industry. 7, Warrior, we'll keep him on the list. We'll revisit him. This might be my answer, if I'm genuinely honest. 8 is Savage. I'm going to remove him because I think he had a huge impact on the business. Cena might be the 3rd most influential on this list, and he may rise above Hogan if Cena gets into like a creative role. 10 is Orton. He's eliminated. 11, as much as I don't like Bret Hart just crying all the time, he was impactful to the industry. And then Triple H at 12 is impactful to the industry. So we're really down to Kane and Ultimate Warrior. And this is a little bit more, but I don't think Ultimate Warrior did much for the business. I'm just going to be honest. So that's going to be my answer. Ultimate Warrior was the least impactful to wrestling. All right, B-Man, this is one of the questions that I had to look up to see if there was an actual reason for this, like an answer for this question, or if I'm just going to have to try to make something up. And so this is a B-Master question. It says, why does the NBA not have an official name for the finals? And I will say they do have an official name. It is called the NBA Finals. But what I think he's asking is why don't they have a cool championship sounding name? Like NFL has the Super Bowl, the NHL has the Stanley Cup playoffs, and then you get to the NBA and you just have the NBA Finals. Now here's the thing with that. I don't think that that's a problem by nature. Here's why. The Super Bowl and football in general is like essentially the Super Bowl was created to be were the best two teams from at the time each league, the AFL and the NFL. Before they merged, so then they merged, and so they said we're going to take the NFC, AFC, and we're going to find what team is the best in each conference, and we're going to put them together. But with football, like you can do this. With basketball being a 7-game series, like right now, the Celtics and the Sixers are going to Game 7 because Boston's about to blow this big-ass lead we just created, right? With basketball, the only games that really matter in a series is elimination games and more specifically Game 7s. And within the finals, like the NBA historically hasn't been a league that marketed the playoffs or the championship series. They marketed players. And I think that's actually the wisest strategy for them. Come watch LeBron try to win another title. Come watch Steph Curry try to win another title. Come watch the up-and-comers. Trying to think of come watch SGA try to play for a title. Come watch, right? So it's always been about personality and not necessarily the branding of the game itself. Whereas the Super Bowl has always just been branded as the Super Bowl. You came for the experience of there's a finality to the Super Bowl. I think it would be a little bit difficult to create a interest in changing the name. Like, what do you name it, right? Because it's a series. It's not just one game, right? And they're not like baseball, where baseball called it the World Series, and they've been able to live off of that branding for hundreds of years. I don't think you can change it. I don't know what you would change it to. I actually like it being just called the NBA Finals. Again, because they're not trying to sell you on the games itself. They're trying to sell you their individual stars, right? Come watch Magic face Bird in the NBA Finals, right? Come watch Kobe versus Kevin Garnett. I remember that series, right? Come watch Kobe versus, or they're selling you on individual teams. Come watch the Lakers play the Celtics in the finals. What was that, 2008? Something like that. Come watch LeBron, like when LeBron and the Heat took over, right? Come watch them try to three-peat, right? When Steph Curry got hot with the Warriors, come watch them try to three-peat, right? So they sold you on players and teams, not necessarily on the event itself. And that's the way the NBA should market the finals. I don't know why they named it that way at the beginning. I don't think that's necessarily important, but I think it's I think they market it fine the way it should be for the type of league that they have. And the type of games at them. Like if it was just one game to end it all, then sure you could have a big name for it, but you don't have that in basketball. And even with the Stanley Cup playoffs, like that's more focused on the trophy in the NHL. They don't have like a big game. Like their Super Bowl, I guess, their big named game would be the Winter Classic. But even that, like, I don't necessarily know. Like, but anyway, next question from B Master: do you think there will ever be a wrestling company that can be on the scale of WWE? Meaning, do you think that said company can shut down a whole city for a week for one event? So if you would have asked me this in 2021, 2022, I would say AEW is on the trajectory that if they go to certain cities like Chicago or LA or London, that they could shut it down for a week and run that thing. I don't think AEW can do it now. I just don't think there's that much interest in that product. As much as there was in 2021, 2022, when it was real hot, when they were at their peak and they were getting 80,000 into Wembley, I think they could have shut down London for a whole week and run shows from Dynamite on Wednesday, a Collision on a Thursday, ROH on a Friday, All In on a Saturday, right? I think they could have done that back at that time. I don't think they can now. Do I think there ever will be one? No. I don't. First off, I don't think we're going to get another major promotion that can battle the AEWs and the WWEs in terms of money spent. I don't think we'll ever get another one of those created. I think AEW was the last hope to try to do it outside of WWE. And so you're going to have to rely on existing promotions that are somewhat big. TNA's never going to do it. CMLL's never going to do it. New Japan's never going to do it. There's just not enough world acclaim to those companies. So the answer plainly is no. I don't think that that's going to happen. So then we get to Kara's questions. And these are pretty good from what I've glimpsed over, right? Kara says, first, if you could book a surprise return in WWE just for the pop, no matter the cost, who would it be? It doesn't have to be a wrestler it doesn't have to be a wrestler, and it doesn't have to be an active wrestler. All right, now I'm going to be honest. The first thing that just slipped into my head may not be the answer y'all were expecting, but it's the answer y'all are getting. Just for the pop, I think it would be absolutely hilarious if we got a promo by where William Regal, so this is how I would book this. I'm going to set you up on my booking so I can sell you on it. Because if there's one thing y'all know, this is why I just talked about if I were to get in the business, I wouldn't want to be a wrestler. If I got into the business, I want to be in the booking room. Tony Khan, hire me for your booking team, right? I want to be a booker, and I want to create the product. I'm a storyteller at heart, so I'm going to sell you. Y'all know I can somewhat do good storytelling, right? I'm going to sell you on this so that y'all can see what I'm seeing. Nick Khan just announced. I can sort of spill some news, talk about some news as well if we do this. Nick Khan at their town hall just announced a cryptic thing. So there's some news coming out. Nashville was supposed to get WrestleMania 43, which is now in Saudi. Nashville just couldn't put together a bid bigger than Saudi's, which no one could. And so Nick Khan had a little quote that came out. Said just something along the lines of, just wait till you see where we go for 44. And so there's a report saying that it's probably going to be Nashville. But I don't know if you make that response or that comment if it's Nashville, right? And so I'm thinking it's going to be London. It's going to be the UK. That's my personal thought. that it's more than likely actually going to be the UK. And so here's the booking on how I would do this pop. We get done with Mania 43 in Saudi. We're on the road to SummerSlam. Now, typically they announce Mania 43 or the next Mania city at Mania. So at Mania 43 in Saudi, William Regal shows up. And he's coming out to give maybe a promo. Maybe he's the one in the spot of here's the amount of total people we have that have come to WrestleMania 43. Here's our attendance, right? And then he pulls out a card and says, but I've got some, listen to this. So Regal's in the ring, he does that. He's then joined in the ring by Wade Barrett. And Wade Barrett steps up on the mic and says, William, typically I give you bad news. But today, I'm glad I got some good news. And announces Mania in the UK. And so William Regal's out there. This is what I'm envisioning. Listen, this is bad booking, by the way. This is really stupid, but this is the first thing that came to my mind. So this is what you're getting. So as Regal's doing that, the following plays. Hold on, let me find this. Let me get through the ads because I don't have premium anymore. The following plays as Regal's wrapping this up. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Incoming to the ring, Eugene. Can you just imagine that pop? I don't know what you do with it. I really don't know what you do with that. Following it. But that would be absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I know Nick Dinsmore would be more than happy to portray that because he portrays it on the indies all the time. I would laugh my ass. That would be a Mania moment. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. That would get a pop. It may not be a good pop, and it would definitely get people talking. I told you it wasn't the answer you were expecting. But we'll move on. Which activity of the following list would you rather do? She gave me 7 different options. So you can either A, have a beer with Stone Cold, B, act out a scene with The Rock, C, have a one-day business internship under Vince McMahon, 4, D, rock it out with Chris Jericho, 5, or E, sit around and cry all day with Bret Hart, F, eat the gimmick worms with Boogeyman, or G, do some politics with Mayor of Knox County, Glenn Jacobs, a.k.a. Kane. So we're immediately going to knock out Boogeyman. We're immediately going to knock out Bret Hart. We're going to knock out Jericho. Knock out The Rock. I would say of this list, probably would love to do. I would probably pick A. I have a beer with Stone Cold because I also think that would lead to some great conversation. I'd bring my dad along because that's my dad's favorite wrestler, right? And that would be a great conversation, I think. We could do a podcast with Austin. Mm-hmm. All right, so then we get to she gives us 5 agree or disagree statements. This might take a minute. You know, I said at the beginning that I wanted this thing to be 90 minutes or less. We're not going to. We're at an hour and 15 right now. We probably got 30 minutes wrapped up in these statements here. We'll see. We'll see where we end up. It is what it is. That's what Question Friday is all about, to get in depth into these questions, right? So agree or disagree. First one, a fresh pretzel from a mall beats movie theater popcorn every single time. Yes. Agree 100%. First off, I would choose a pretzel anywhere than popcorn. Popcorn is gross, y'all. Like, why did we make that movie snack? Like, out of everything we could have chosen, we chose popcorn as the movie snack. That's the snack we get at the theaters. Sorry, I'm not a fan of... I like it. I'll eat it occasionally. But when I go to the movie theaters... When I go to the theaters... Like, I'm planning on going at some point. At least a few more times this year. At least for the Odyssey when that comes out. There's a movie, Animal Farm. I think that's out today. Yeah, that came out today. Animal Farm. I want to watch that. Not today. I'm not watching it today. Ain't got the money for that. But if let's say I went and watched Animal Farm, like when I go and I get the ticket and I get to go in to the theater, I don't want popcorn. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I think popcorn is gross. They lather on that fake ass butter. They cook it in, like, why did we not choose something that was more appetizing? Like, there's other, like I saw a post the other day that was like, imagine going to the movies and being able to get a bucket of, like, French fries. Or, like, I would prefer, like I'm a potato dude all day, every day over popcorn. I'm going to be honest with you. But, like, imagine getting, like, a bucket of, like, fries. Now, that's a little big back activity right there. But I can't imagine it'll be any, like, less calories than the amount of popcorn that they be giving people. Let's chat GTP that. What would be worse, a bucket of popcorn or a bucket of fries? Like, imagine going... The fries would probably be worse. If you're just eating popcorn plain no butter, then yeah, that's definitely better for you. But then I'm sitting there like, I'm gonna thought, like, give me, like, a bucket of chicken wings. Like, imagine ordering, like, you go into this hour and a half, 2 hour long movie, and you're able to just sit there and smash down, like, a 40-piece nugget throughout the movie. Or a, like, 40-piece chicken wing. Like, why is it gotta be popcorn? I hate popcorn. Right, I love pretzels, especially, like, the soft pretzels. Love them. So yes, agree. A fresh pretzel. I would take one of them stale ass movie theater pretzels over popcorn. I'm just be honest. So a fresh one from, like, Auntie Anne's or Wetzel's or whatever. I don't know what pretzel companies you got in your mall. 100% pretzel. Number 2, there are too many games in baseball and basketball. So we're going to break this down by sport. Let's start with basketball because this is easy. Generally, I would agree. Yes, there are too many games. Now, they're doing a lot more load management and stuff. I'm also not a big fan of basketball. I would say 82 is a lot of games. I would probably lower it to like 65. I would start the season in like December or November because baseball's over by October. I would start the basketball season in November, and I would end it in like April. So that's November, December, January, February, March, April. That's 6 months. 10 games a month, I think, is reasonable. So here's the thing. I think that's reasonable. I think 60 games and then the playoffs is reasonable. 6 games a month. You wouldn't have to load manage because you're playing 6 games in a 30-day period of time. That's like the occasional 2-game week, but most of the time you're getting like 1 game per week. Like even if it's and here's what I would do with basketball. If you're doing 6 games a month, I'm doing 4 games on Saturdays. But even if you do 2 games per month, 6 months, 2 games per month. I'm sorry, not 2 games per month. I'm a little stupid. So you're doing 6 games per month. Even if you do 12 games per month. I'm a little bit slow with what I'm trying to process this. Right, so you're doing 6 games per month I'm slow. I'm a little bit slow. 60 games. It's 10 games per month, and that's why I'm a little slow. You're doing 10 games per month. The point, what I would actually think would actually be better is a 12 game per month thing for 6 months would be 72. I mean, that's dropping 10 games. I'll say with basketball, I don't think it's as bad. What I would do, the thing with basketball that I would do though, is I would create almost like baseball does, and do weekend series where, say, Charlotte has Memphis come to town, and they play 3 games in Charlotte over a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday. And you do 3 games per week, and you got 4 weeks, so you're at home one weekend, on the road the next, at home, and then on the road. And you just flip-flop for 6 months. You do 3 games per week. There's 4 weeks in a month. That's 12 games per month. And you do it November, December, January, February, March. So that's 5 months, actually. So that's 60 games. So that's how you get to your 60 games. 3 games, and then April will be the playoffs. I think that works better for the NBA. One, more people will come on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday than they would come on a random Tuesday. Right? So you do Friday nights, Saturday nights, Sunday nights. Or you could do like Sunday afternoon. That would probably work better, right? Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. Players can then travel to the next city they're going to be at, have a whole week to practice, play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they do that. So you do 60 games. So you do that for 5 months. November, December, January, February, and March. At the end of March, you then, right, you got your playoffs. April starts and you run your playoffs. And your playoffs sort of run as they normally do now. Right? Though, I think you could run your playoffs during the weekends. It would take a little bit longer, but I would also genuinely say people are genuinely more interested in playoff games, and so they'll come on a random Wednesday. But even if you ran your playoffs as you could run your playoffs as if they're 7-game series, you could run Monday or you could run a Wednesday, and they alternate. The problem with that is they alternate days for TV schedules, and that's a lot of the bigger problem is the TV schedules. But with basketball, I think it's a simple fix, 60-game regular season, then you do your playoffs. The bigger question that we have, and the one that gets me in a lot of trouble, because I've been saying this for several years, is baseball is far too long. This is the one I want to spend some time on. I've been complaining about the length. 162 games is absolutely insane. And here's why. Games 1... and opening weekend is typically the first week of April, right? Or like very end of March, early April, right? It's opening day. So you go from April through September. So that's April, May, June, July, August, and September. 6 months. You play 6 months. 162 games. That's an average of 27 games per month, which means you get 3 rest days a month for 6 months straight. You have 18 days off in a 6-month period of time on average. I'm playing MLB The Show 25 right now. And I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm like, am I ever going to get an off day? I'm literally at the beginning of the season. And this first month of April, I'm playing as the San Francisco Giants just because why not? Honestly, it's the jerseys. I just love their jerseys, to be honest with you. And I don't play as my team. I have a weird superstition of not playing as my favorite team, which would be the Red Sox. And so I'm playing as the Giants. And, like, first off, the top of this season that I'm playing right now, the schedule crazy. Because I'm in Philly right now. Then I got to travel to, like, Milwaukee. I've gone, like, 2 weeks without a home game. And I only have 1 off day in the first month of baseball. Like, in April, right? From April 1st through April 30th in my season, 1 off day. And yet they do that for like the first 6 months of baseball. And really they do that for 6 months straight. You get 18 days off in a 6-month period. That's insane. Not only for player health, but here's the problem with 162 games. And this is what I tell my friends all the time. So my birthday is July 31st. My birthday happens to be the most important day in the MLB schedule. Trade deadline day. Every single year, my birthday becomes a stress match if Boston is going to try to actually win. Because here's what happens, right? We see this all the time. New York Mets start really strong, and then trade deadline day comes, and then they suck after deadline. Or All-Star break happens in the middle of July, right? That's typical. Like, so I always tell people, I don't care about baseball until August 1st. So it's May 1st as I'm recording this. Don't care about what's going on in the MLB for the next May, June, July. 3 months. You got 3 more months before I care about what happens in the MLB. Because August and September are the only 2 months that actually matter. Because we see this all the time where the Mets come into through July as at trade deadline, the Mets are winning we see this all the time. They're winning the NL East. And then August 1st happens, and they just start tanking for whatever reason and then miss the playoffs. We see it all the time. We see this happen all the time. The only point in the season that matters is the last, 30 games. And so there comes a point in time where May and June and most of July doesn't matter. Now, the hardcore baseball fans will be like, well, no, because when you get to the end of the season, there are teams that miss the playoffs by one game. And remember back in April where they went on a 7-game losing streak? If they would have just won one of those, they would have made the play. Those games didn't matter. But also from a player safety standpoint, I've proposed, and I've thought of this. I don't remember every exact detail. I propose within the same 6 months that you play baseball, I propose. I think I made it 100 games. You lose 62 games, which is almost half the season. 100-game baseball season. And here's how I proposed it. So I'm going to use the Boston Red Sox as an example. So the Boston Red Sox are playing in the AL East, the American League East. They play in the American League East. Their rivals, and they also play in the AL, the Toronto Blue Jays, Baltimore Orioles, New York Yankees, and the Tampa Bay Rays. They play those 4 teams in, got to remember how I said this. I believe those 4 teams each get 6 games against those 4 teams. So that's 24 of your games. I believe is how I said it. So 6 games. That's essentially 2 series. So, because a lot of times how they do it is the series record. And a lot of times you play 3-game series, right? And then you play the next, right? So the Phillies and the Giants are actually playing in real life. And I think they just wrapped up their 3-game series. Or they're in the middle of it, right? So you play 6 games in your division. That's 24 games. You then have the other 20 teams. Excuse me, not 20. Because there's only 30 in the league. Let's see. The AL Central will be the White Sox. Yeah, there's the White Sox, the Twins, the Guardians. The Royals. Is that it? There's one more. Because there's 5 teams in each division. Yeah, so there's 50. Yeah, the other 10 teams. There's 15 teams in each league, AL and L. So you have the other 10 teams in the AL, which you will play in one 3-game series. That's 30 games. So now we have 54 games scheduled. You have 15 other teams. I think I did this wrong, actually. Let me restart this. I'm trying to remember. I did this like 3 years ago. So let's start with this. Boston Red Sox, 15 teams in the National League, opposite league. You play them in one 3-game series. That's 45 games. Okay, I may have been on the right track. 45 games. You play 30 games in the 2 other divisions in your league. That's 30 games, one 3-game series against those teams. Now you're at 75. Yeah, I was right. And then you play 6 games against your inner division, in your division. Okay, so it's not 100, it's 99. It's a 99-game season. And that's how I worked it out. Yeah, I like that. So 6 games, so the Red Sox will play 6 games against the Yankees, Rays, Orioles, and Blue Jays. 6 games against those. They will then play 3 games against every other team. Essentially is how this works out, right? So 6 games, that's 24. There's 29 other teams. You play 3 games against that. That's wrong as well. I don't know how the math works out. I may have messed up the math somehow. There's 15 teams in the NL. You play 3 games against them. That's 45 games. You then play you play 24, because you got 4 teams, 6 games, 24 in your division. That's 69. And then you got 10 other teams in the AL that you play 3 games against, and that's 30. So that's 69. So then, how come when I do 29? Oh, that's why. Because it's not 29. It's 20. 25. 25 times 3 is 75. And 20. Yep. So 99 game season. That's what I would propose for baseball. 99 games over 6 months is 16 games in some months, 17 in other months. It's 16 and a half. But it's a 6, it's right. So you lose 10 games per month. That gives you 10 extra off days throughout the season. I don't know. I just feel like that works. Baseball's far too saturated. Games mean more. And the way that I had it scheduled, your division games mean more. Every single game means more in that case because you have 99 games compared to 162. But your division games mean more. Anyway, next one. As we continue down this, do you agree that NASCAR is harder than most sports? She's reacting to Stephen A. ignorantly saying that NASCAR is not hard. And here's what I would say. I 100% agree. Because NASCAR isn't just about pure athleticism. It's, I don't know if you guys have ever driven a car for 4 hours straight at 120 degrees internal temperature in the car at 180 miles an hour. Let's say average speed throughout the season's probably closer to like 140 because you got the road courses where they don't go that fast, and you got stuff like Martinsville where they hardly hit 100. So your average speed throughout the season's probably about 160. But imagine going 180 miles an hour for 4 hours in 120 degree temperatures and having to make split-second decisions. And if you miss by just a split second, you wreck these $1 million cars. It is one of the most difficult things I think you could possibly do as an athlete. I don't understand why people don't see how hard this is. Because a lot of people just see racing, and more specifically NASCAR, as just rednecks driving in circles. And when they started, let's be honest, like when NASCAR started, yeah, you probably could have said that. They were using stock cars. They were probably going like 70, 80, 90 miles an hour. And yeah, so it was just, but even then, that's still a difficult feat to race at all, right? But now imagine going like 180 for 4 hours straight. And I just like to throw in at 120 degrees. Because I'm a guy, like I need my AC on full blast in the summer. I went 2 or 3 years ago, I went the entire summer here in the deep south of North Carolina with no AC, with the windows down. And it was miserable. Very miserable. I just can't imagine doing that. Like, I remember going and driving from Charlotte to Nashville with no AC, windows down the whole time. I was going to go watch a Patriots preseason game. We got our asses kicked in the preseason. I drove, that's an 8-hour drive, by the way. So I drove 16 hours in one day. In the summer heat, August heat, in the South. It was like 100 degrees. That was a miserable trip. I'm just going to be honest with you. It was a miserable drive. I was, I got dehydrated. I actually had to stop because my mouth was so dry. Like, I literally struggled to breathe. I had to stop to get water. I didn't pack pretty well. Like, before I left, so I went to the game, and I was debating on whether or not to stay in Nashville because hotels are kind of expensive. But I got really cheap seats because of the preseason game. So I stayed in Nashville for the night. Went to the game. So I'm trying to remember how I did this because it was a Saturday preseason game. So I drove there on a Friday. I drove on Friday, stayed Friday night, went to the game Saturday, stayed Saturday night, and then drove home Sunday. But before I left on Sunday, I stopped at Walmart, and I got me a whole cooler. I got 2 bags of ice and some water. 1, I didn't want to stop, but 2, I just remember it was just a miserable trip. Like, it's miserable, bro. To sit at those high temperatures, no AC, for 4 hours at high, like, and I was just traveling like 70 miles an hour. They're going 180, having to make these dangerous ass moves. That, right? And so, yeah, NASCAR is definitely harder than most sports. But it's also very different than most sports. Most sports are like contact in nature, or, the stick and ball sports. They're very athletic at the, like, you. It's more about your ability to run or your ability to catch or whatever, right? It's with your feet and with your hands, catching and running. NASCAR's a mental sport, right? You have to know a lot of things about cars and driving, and the track feels like this, and you have to communicate constantly, hey, this is what the car is feeling like, so that the crew chief can hear it, and he's on the pit box trying to figure out how to fix the car that's not running well. Hey, the car's too loose coming into the corner here, but too tight on the opposite end of the track. NASCAR's difficult, bro. Like, I know a bunch of people who race just because I live in North Carolina, like the center of, like, I'm 10 minutes away. I can go take a picture right now with the Dale Earnhardt statue in his hometown of Kannapolis. I'm like 10 minutes away from it. So, like, I'm in NASCAR country. Every week when the haulers leave to go to the track, I see them on my way to work every single week. In fact, AJ Allmendinger's passed me. So I was going north. They were going south. I don't even know where they're racing this week. I haven't been keeping up because Tyler Reddick keeps winning. And I'm tired of seeing the same guy win every week. Starting to feel like Formula One. But yeah, racing in general is hard. Like Formula One and Indy cars, those cars go much fast. Like, there's a reason they don't run circles. Like, IndyCar runs circles all the time. And there's some tracks that, like, NASCAR gets to, like, 160 that these Indy cars are doing, like, 250. It's crazy. The amount, like, the speed, the technical ability that you need, the constant, like, not only are you physically exerting yourself, but you're mentally exerting yourself. And the heat itself, like, heat exhaustion is a real thing. It's a difficult sport. So, Anyone who says differently, I challenge you to do it. It's like one of those things when people say wrestling isn't a real thing, like wrestling is fake, it doesn't hurt. And wrestlers challenge people to take a bump. Same thing I will say with NASCAR. If you think it's easy, get in the car and do it, because it's not. Far from, especially when people, I don't think people realize that a lot of these tracks in the turns are banked. Talladega, they were just at Talladega. When you go into the turn at Talladega, you're practically the car is practically sideways. It's at like a 30-degree angle. It's practically almost about to flip. So at Charlotte Motor Speedway, I live really close to there. They do their Christmas lights all the time. And you could drive on the track surface to do your Christmas lights. If you're not going fast enough when you're entering the turn, your car will flip. Or it'll feel like it'll flip. And that degree banking is only like 15. Right? I've walked on Charlotte Motor Speedway. I think the flattest track we have is Indy. I've walked on Indy as well. But like these tracks are crazy steep as well in the turns. Like there's just so much about auto car racing, like that I don't think people who aren't into it don't understand. Right? We'll get back to NASCAR with her fifth one here in a second. But she posts another one. This one's gonna get me in trouble. Well, the last two are gonna get me in trouble, but this one, the 80s. Do you agree that the 80s is the greatest decade culturally? I don't agree with this. Here's why. I think people look back at the 80s the same way that wrestling fans look back at the Attitude Era. It's fully nostalgic. Now, Kara, I'm pretty certain you're much younger than me. And I wasn't born in the 80s. I'm a 90s kid. So I don't know there are some people whose love for the 80s gets passed down by their parents. Now, I will say this. 80s were a great generation. But I think people who grew up in the 80s and continuously preach about the 80s being the greatest, I think a lot of that is pure nostalgia. One, they were a kid, but they were a kid in probably the greatest time ever to grow up. If you think about it, like if you grew up in the 90s, you had to deal with a very politicized culture, not as politicized as it is now, but like the world wasn't at peace. There was a lot of chaos in the Middle East in the 90s, early 2000s, right? And so growing up in those times, what I'm trying to say is like in the 80s, like Reagan, for all intents and purposes, how they propagandized it, he ended communism. He ended the threat of communism to America in the 80s, right? He tore down the wall, right? The 80s felt like, gas prices were very low for the most part. Like pricing and housing and all of that was very affordable. Like the 80s were a great time to be alive. And because of that, that feeling that a lot of these people had in the 80s were just great. That's when life was simple. And so they sort of popularized the 80s. Now, I'm not going to take away what the 80s presented us. We got a lot of cool things that happened in the 80s in the music world. But I think it's a little disrespectful culturally to say that the 80s were the greatest cultural decade. If I had to circle, and it's not because I'm a 90s kid. I wouldn't even consider myself a 90s kid. I was born in 97. I'm more of an early 2000s kid, right? But the 90s presented us with a lot of things that I don't think the 80s presented us with. Granted, rap music was created in the 80s, the mid-80s, but it didn't get worldwide popular until the 90s. Right? So I would say the evolution of rap into the mainstream is a very, right? But not just rap, mainstream pop country music 90s country is a nostalgic thing within the country world, right? As a fan of country music, like, everyone always goes back to 90s country. Why? Because it's one of the greater generations of country music. Shania and Garth, we were mainstream, just like rap was. These two sort of genres in rap and country that was sort of like, it was a niche genre for most of, rap was just created, but country was really a niche genre at the time, through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And then it broke out with Garth, and it broke out with Shania, and then Alan Jackson and George Strait. Because of that, were sort of elevated, right? And then, like, 90s country was just great. I think a lot of people don't realize, the probably most watched show of all time. And we'll Google this, or chat GTP this. We'll see this. What is the most watched TV show of all time? Alright, so if we're going by individual episode, it was MASH. The series finale of MASH is the most watched live episode of all time. That's actually crazy for that time. Here we go. Most watched show in worldwide popularity. And Friends is on this list. Right? Friends is like a cultural phenomenon. And that's a 90s show. Friends. There's so many things the 90s presented us, right? But I want to then also say the early 2000s was culturally relevant. And so, this is definitely an opinionated question, but y'all know me. This is a nostalgia question. Do I agree that the 80s were the most culturally important, impactful decade? No, I don't. I think I would give it to the 90s, and it's very close. The 80s are up there. I think I would go 90s, then I would go 80s, and I would go early 2000s. Just me personally. I think a lot of people correlate with the 80s as this was when life was good, and so they go back to watch those things because life was good back then. Now, you have your argument for the 80s, absolutely. But I also think, we talk about cultural impact, nu metal and pop punk, and those stuff started getting very popular in the 90s. I think from a cultural impact, at least for me, the 90s was more impactful to me than the 80s were. So we'll go with that. And then the last of these agree or disagree statements, we're going back to NASCAR. And I live in Earnhardt country, and she's trying to get me in trouble. Jeff Gordon is greater than Dale Earnhardt. And I have to answer, honestly, like, even if I do live in Earnhardt country, I have to answer honestly. And this may be a little biased because Jeff Gordon was my favorite driver growing up, and to this day, my favorite driver ever. But yes, Jeff Gordon, without a doubt, statistically is better. But I have an argument for this. So first off, 93 wins compared to Dale's 76. Granted, Dale's career was tragically cut short. Part of me still believes Dale Earnhardt would be racing today. Now, I don't know. I mean, he would probably be like 80 years old today. I don't know exactly how old he would be, but I think part of me believes he would have raced through the 2000s into the 2010s, at least. That's just who he was. If he didn't tragically pass in 01. But 93 wins versus Dale 76. Dale has 7 championships. Gordon has 4. But on this topic, like I think I have a strong argument that Jeff Gordon faced a far more difficult challenge in his career. And that is Dale Earnhardt didn't have Dale Earnhardt started in the late 70s or through the 80s into the 90s and 2000s. And he didn't have as deep of a field as Jeff Gordon had to go through the 2000s. Like Jeff Gordon raced, and when Jeff Gordon was at his peak, late 90s, early 2000s, you had star drivers. Like, first off, he had the race against Dale, but then he had Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart, the Bushes. He had his own teammates to go against. Also at the time of Gordon's, that's where we started to see like super teams, where like Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs, and you were really racing machines in terms of like your teams. And so like Joe Gibbs had really good cars with Tony Stewart and the Bonnie, and Roush was very good back then, Kempthus and Mark Martin and all of them. Penske had really good cars. Evernham had good cars at that time. Like, you could probably go like 20 cars in. Not every car was equal in NASCAR at the time, but you could probably go about 20 deep of who could possibly win on a given weekend in NASCAR during Gordon's career. And I think during Dale's, like, you had good drivers. Like, I'm not saying he didn't, but you probably could go about 10 deep, right? Far more complete competitive field, right? But Dale also won 7 titles. Everyone always mentions that. He won 7 titles in a far less competitive series with a point system that rewarded consistency and not like you had to be consistent, meaning you had to finish top 5, top 10 every single week in order to win the title, versus finishing 15th, 16th for most of the season, getting into the chase for the cup, and then getting hot at the end of the season. Looking at you, Jimmy Johnson, the point that I'm also trying to say, like, if we stayed with the Winston Cup, the old style of points, Jeff Gordon also has 7 titles. They've gone back and gone through some of these seasons where it became like a playoff eliminator style point system, where Gordon struggled at the very end of the year some years, but dominated during what they would call the regular season. Like, there was a season, I think he had 13 wins and didn't win the championship because of the point system, because he struggled at the end of the season, where realistically he ran away with the points based on the old system. And so I think Gordon had a harder time to win titles. Gordon should have 7 titles based on the old point system, that if you reward consistency. I think overall, just everything about it, right? He was a more technical driver. He was more universal as a driver, meaning he could run super speedways and be good. He can run intermediate tracks and be good. He can run short tracks and be good. And the one thing Dale was really bad at that Jeff was really good at was the road courses. And so for now, I think Jeff Gordon is better than Dale Earnhardt. I don't know of an actual logical reason why anyone would disagree with that, other than you were an Earnhardt fan and you're a little biased, right? So I will agree with that statement. And then the last question for this episode, Kara asks, finally, we had a conversation in the Discord about Star Wars. And so this is probably what informed this question. If WETOODEEP, that's me, was in the Star Wars universe, who would he have been and why a Wookiee? So I went too far on this, and I actually created my own persona in the Star Wars universe. I wouldn't have been, so I didn't pick a character that I would have been. I created my own sort of side universe in the Star Wars galaxy. And so this is cool. I'll post it in the Discord. I would be a sort of independent, so not a Jedi, not necessarily a Sith. So here's what I had created for me. My character's name is Kyle Vorn, or Kale. Maybe that's Kale, Kael. I like Kyle. That's a cool sound to it. Kyle Vorn, an independent, force-sensitive operative. My origin is Corellia. My affiliation, I am unaffiliated. So, like I said, I'm not a Sith, I'm not a Jedi, not anything else. Like, I'm unaffiliated. I align with the light, but again, I'm independent. I'm an analyst, strategist, operative. My philosophy, truth over institution, reality over narrative, and that loyalty is earned and not given. Kyle Vorn operates in the spaces between the empires, orders, and systems. He's force sensitive, but not bound by Jedi doctrine. He follows the quote-unquote living force, seeking truth within reality, not in dogma. A system thinker and field operative, he is sought by those who need clarity in chaos, but he answers to no one. Popular quote that I might say in this series: the problem isn't the force, it's just how people use it. And to make it a little bit more confusing, I also have the Mandalorian mindset of independence, competence, honor through action, not words. This thing created like a whole, what type of ship I would have, what type of lightsaber I would have. I'm not going that deep, but yeah, so I'm essentially like an independent thinker. Who would have thought? So like a Mandalorian, but like but also like oh, I can't forget that dude's name. It doesn't matter at this point. You get the point. I'll post the image in the Discord of the persona that I had created for me. But that's this episode of Fan Question Friday here on the Slapping Meat Community Show. Thank you all for listening. Let me know what you all think about this, and I will see you on the next episode on Tuesday.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride, whether it's NXT or NFL time. Going in the ropes and forth and deep, slapping meat community every Tuesday. Go Fan Community!